Hey, it is your buddy, Peace and Harmony with you here today. Much love going out to all the beautiful, empowered harmonizers. We are zooming in and focusing in a little bit more in depth on a great viewer question that is understanding how do you release a negative attachment or a trauma bond with someone who has been difficult in your life. Manipulative. They have not really seen your viewpoint. They don't express a willingness to see or hear your viewpoint. They just are very one-sided. And they tend to be sort of controlling or manipulative and cause a dysfunctional dependence in the relationship, meaning depend on me, I have the right information. Depend on me, what I say goes. I, call the shots. And people then, in order to be supportive, end up just sort of sacrificing and going along, even if they're not interested, even if it's not what they want, they feel a pressure. Maybe it's a peer pressure or a familiar pressure or a societal pressure, meaning, I should, put them first, take care of them before me. I mean, there's all sorts of these situations and circumstances that can go and lead to self-sacrifice and self-denial and lack of self-representation, feeling that you have then depression and loss of direction in your life. And if you feel this loss of direction, oftentimes it's because it's gotten to a point where it's been overthought and you've lost perspective and you have that sort of paralysis analysis and you're out of the heart space. You're into the cognitive and just sort of trying to judge, and you're really sort of, it's usually there is a trigger, which is important to understand and how it operates in your emotions, especially if there's been, trauma in your past, controlling or difficult people in your past, or abuse, bullying, basically this sort of pressure, which comes from within, which comes from without, and then leads to the hormones of stress, the stress hormones, the cortisol, the fight or flight, all those, sort of fear-based states, the survival states. I can't survive unless. And, it becomes a foundation of fear rather than a foundation of the absence of fear or peace, love, unconditional acceptance. So if you keep it very simple and look at the prevalence of the foundation of the relationship, has it become or, gotten from a love base to a fear base? Is it out of balance? Is it more about the intimidation, the pressure, you should, all these sort of judgments and conforming to judgments that are not oftentimes understood within or, worked through within. And so it becomes, you just sort of agree with them by default. You don't really sort of read the fine print. You don't understand what you're agreeing to in the beginning. And in the relationship, or you don't realize sort of the power that these individuals end up exerting or looking to take advantage of in their relationships. Oftentimes people don't understand it because they don't approach the relationship in the same way. So there's not sort of a meeting of terms, a meeting of minds, or sort of this mutual understanding. So there becomes a miscommunication, misunderstanding. But because of a lack of communication, people tend to mull it over in the form of misguiding or misdirection. And so they become manipulative. They don't feel that they have power or to exert over their future, over their life. And oftentimes it's a prevalence of a feeling of guilt. In other words, you are wrong, you are a bad person, it's all your fault. It's just sort of this projection that I find that manipulators, controllers, and people who are psychopathic, who want to get sort of leverage over others, particularly have this assumption of guilt. So even though it's not founded on anything, they will use the tools of gaslighting and brainwashing that oftentimes can be elicited through a very tone of voice itself, which is almost like a Pavlov's dog. If you In psychology, there is the study of Pavlov's dog where basically if you have, he studied this in a laboratory. But, basically a dog, who's hungry and they see food, they will begin to salivate. They're hungry, they see food, they salivate. It's a normal reaction. They're getting ready to chow down. What Pavlov did is that every time the food was presented, he rang a bell. So it's almost like a dinner bell. The bell rang, and at the same time he presented the food. So there was an association created in that animal, in that test animal. And so and they would then measure the salivation. They would pair then and create an association of the sound of the bell with the presenting of the food. And then they basically conditioned and programmed, they repeated that again and again and again so that the dog would have the food and then the bell presented. And then basically it was conditioned. It paired the food with the bell. So it made that connection and that association that when I hear the bell, my food is coming and I will begin to salivate. In Pavlov's dog, what they found that after enough repetition and experience, just the ringing of the bell made the dogs salivate. So even though there was nothing there, even though if a dog heard a bell, he wouldn't salivate, she wouldn't salivate, but yet after they connected it with the presenting of the food, then the bell alone was enough to trigger the salivation. So it shows you how connections and associations can be made, and that that are basically become autonomic based on the pairing and then the neurochemical responses and the physiological responses. So to me, the manipulator, the difficult person, this person who's controlling, whether they're narcissistic, psychopathic, whatever, the problem that oftentimes becomes difficult to break free is the constant exposure. And even the sound of the voice, they begin to, the tone, and, it can be this projection of guilt, this projection of, it's your fault, isn't, and then, it's something that you did or something that you are that is, irreconcilably wrong, or, you're finding yourself not able to work through it. And then, because you didn't see it coming. So this sort of web of guilt is oftentimes, I feel, and fear-based is one of the foundational aspects in a manipulative relationship. Based on the fear, based on the intimidation, with usually an assumption that you don't know for yourself, you are, whatever, imbecilic or whatever it is that they're going to define their supply with to get cooperation, to get you bend to them, to get you to basically, cock your ear to them rather than listening within in your own heart. So you begin to just sort of skip over because you've been unrepresented. It just keeps going on. And so it's like the bell is a similar training that if you've been chronically exposed to this person for some time, and they've got you in a reactive state, oftentimes that reactive state is then based on guilt, meaning, you are wrong without me, or you don't know what is the best without me. I have instructed you, I have taught you, I have led you, whatever it is, and that you can't make it without me. It's usually there's this sort of, I find that those people who have been victimized, they fall into that very quickly, even with other people. When they hear the same tone, they'll kind of slip into that fight or flight mode, that fear-based mode. And so you have to be aware and sensitive and conscious when you have found yourself in that basis, and to get yourself out of that sandbox, get yourself out of that constant feeling of fear, guilt, inferiority. It's kind of like a default state that can be, since it's so programmed, so conditioned, It's important to understand really how guilt works, how it feels, what it sounds like, how it got there, where did it arise from? Where is it just floating in the ether? Guilt and fear is oftentimes the catapult, the cause that creates the effect of a lot of these disorders, the thought disorders, the mood disorders, the anxiety, restlessness. There's all sorts of new diagnoses, restless leg syndrome, a lot of new diagnosis, whether the testing tools are getting more sensitive or whether, there's more chemicals, that's up for debate. The food that we're eating, the air that we're breathing, but namely, the influence of technology and then others, who have crossed your path in this journey. It's important to understand, I think, really getting down to the ultra basics, basic, and to understand your feel and be state that has been created or triggered by this individual. And then usually there's sort of a healthier be state, which is based on happiness, joy, absence of fear, which is, it sounds corny, but the feeling of love or being loved is oftentimes a scarce commodity nowadays. And if it is, it's in the superficial, it's in the Facebook, and to what degree, it becomes up for debate, this, if you don't do this, then that, there's a lot of this fear based. So it's important to understand, I feel, the guilt that keeps a lot of these negative trauma in place. So explore that guilt, that you are wrong, you are inferior, you're an imbecile, you are too slow, and oftentimes it's their interpretation and not your own. So maybe you need time and they're pressuring you. The pressure is an external locus of control. So you have to be able to acknowledge and validate it and keep it outside of you. And then understand that body-mind connection that you have, you need to sort of cultivate and comb through and work on that just sort of focused and calm be state. And then know how to get that state at command. So in other words, allowing yourself to be, allowing yourself to breathe easy, to not feel alarmed, not feel triggered, and cultivating and strengthening and rehearsing and rememorizing that state. So being able to pull it up, and so to do that, realize that pressure is not written on your wall. It is not written on your ceiling. It's not written on your front door. It's not written on your bedroom pillowcase. Where do you have this word pressure written? If so, realize that oftentimes it's a creation of the mind, which is keeping that fear in place, the trauma bond, and just sort of the difficulty of separating. It becomes a tangle, and a neurotangle, just sort of confusion, the fog, I think is part of it. And then, you see it presented in the form of intrusive thoughts, nightmares, worried that they're coming back. What the nightmares and these things are about are just trying to get you to prepare yourself. In other words, it's your subconscious trying to have an internal communication. Hey, do you have your act together? Hey, do you know do you know this person? Do you know how to handle them? Are they could still be an influence. You need to process this. So sometimes in that dream state, the subliminal mind is bringing this to your attention. It's very fascinating. And so it'll either cause you to freeze or to run. If you're feeling out of control, maybe you need to move, but you need to process it at sort of more of a different level, sort of a heart and mind balance level, where you're able to articulate, you're able to say, aha, I get this. And I'm okay, I've accepted that I can bring myself outside of the influence that is not fear-based. That is not fear-based. And understand the guilt, that you might then feel that you didn't identify it earlier. How many things are you holding against yourself at this point? that can keep the trauma bond in place as well. And it's okay to take responsibility and own up to it, fess up to it, and be rigorously honest. I am taking responsibility for my feel state. I am taking responsibility for my be state. I am taking responsibility for my I am state. Even if I don't quote unquote feel like it, I am. And just so if you find yourself just sort of backtracking, feeling numb, feeling, that depression, oftentimes I feel that that's, it's based on a lack, because the depression can lead to feeling a lack of direction in life. And, that could be part of this issue. And guilt, or, that feeling of, not seeing your strengths, it can be really, really part of the erroneous thoughts that are going through your mind. So you need to get rid of those junk thoughts. I mean, just literally sweep them away. They come up, sweep it away. They come up, sweep it away. They come up, sweep it away. You literally have to have like a mental broom and sweep them out. So at least you have a feeling of clarity, a feeling of clearance, a feeling of just being. And when you're in that state, you're able to better identify and handle and manage, and do it on a very simple, quick basis. Making statements that are 5 to 7 words that can explain your position, and that you can then cultivate and culture your own be state, I think is important on the physiological, because it's the thoughts that run the energy into a chaotic energy in the body. It's just keeping you misdirected, not able to sort of work things out. So you go one way, this way, this way. And so people are going like too many directions. They don't have a sort of clarity of focus. So being able to release the guilt. If I didn't feel so guilty, I would really love to. If I didn't feel so controlled, I would really feel better when if I didn't have to deal with this manipulation, one of the things I really love to feel is to just, and so if you can think through these thought forms and create a new set of questions so you get a different answer from within, it'll help you to focus on a solution and discover your inner voice. That is more on just even a neutral, and then tending towards the positive, orderly direction, thinking, feeling, behaving, and becoming. So you have to realize and catch it, and if you find yourself getting stuck or blocked, then, it's time to say, yep, sweep it away, sweep, 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 sweep. And if you can envision like a really coarse broom, the way it just sort of sweeps the floor, like that new broom that really gets in the corners, and you don't have to brush, a couple of them, and it just sweeps it away. You have to be able to clear that. I mean, literally give yourself a command. Sweep that away, sweep that away. If you've got this, sweep the guilt away, sweep it away. Just keep at it, keep on top of it. And so you can get better command over those be states, and you have to be able to have that faith and belief, because it's like riding a bike. At first you might feel shaky, but you have to keep the feet going. And in this case, with direction, you have to be able to keep the sweep going, and keep one foot going in front of the other, and being able to live in that clarity, which for you might just need to be the absence of fear. The absence of fear. Fear will promote the hormones of stress and keep stress running through you. To a certain degree, you do need, some degree of stress. Hey, I've got to eat. My stomach is growling. Hey, I'm so thirsty, I need to drink something. Hey, I need to go to work. I need to do this. That's some degree of stress, but we're talking when it becomes toxic, when it becomes unnecessary, when it becomes a tool of manipulation. You have to be able to catch it before it comes into your energy, and realize that it can be triggered, even like the tone of somebody's voice. Don't allow that tone to upset you. Don't be like the Pavlov's dog and allow just that bell to send you into a negative direction where you feel fooled. and allow yourself to be able to have the authority within. Oftentimes that feeling of authority within that leader within hasn't been acknowledged and validated and experienced. So people feel that they can't really stand themselves up, or they can't stand up to an abuser. Oftentimes because of these foundational fear and guilt states, that are used and sort of, used with the negative, the negative validation of reflecting back a negative quality to you, which is diminishing your personal power, which causes you to never step into your power. So step into your power. Just step into it. Why? People are so used to sort of battling themselves that they're not allowing. So let the word allow work for you today. I allow. I allow clarity. I allow peace. I allow the absence of fear. I allow happiness. I allow comfort. I allow right thinking. I allow positive, orderly direction, thinking, feeling, behaving, and becoming. Even if you haven't been on this part of the journey before, you got to a new outlook, a new clearing, a new woods, a new vista, where you're wondering, can I handle it? It's a new perspective. Yes, I can. Yes, I can handle it. Yes, I can handle the change. Yes, I can handle the crossroads. Yes, I can handle the right thing to do for myself now. Yes, I can check in within. Yes, I can manage this. Yes, I can. So you oftentimes need to speak that truth into existence and stop hearing the gaslighting. Stop hearing the negative, guilty, projections. Stop seeing that in your mind's eye. Allow it to fade away. If it's difficult to fade away, then you're hanging onto it because you feel that you have a dependency need on this individual, and you've created that neurotangle. You've allowed that to remain like an anchor holding you back. So you need to understand that that's how the role of the level, very many levels of consciousness work. And so if you're holding that within, see and just experiment with yourself. Hey, I'm going to release that feeling for 5 minutes, and then I'm going to see what self-trust feels like, and I'm going to see if I can manage it. And then see how you work through, and then you'll find yourself handling situations that you could not or would not handle before, but that you are able to handle now because you're sort of championing and backing yourself up, coming from within, that positive self-talk, and knowing how to, find that release within of tension, release of stress, and being able to separate yourself from the cause that's created that stress, and to know better, to understand projection, to understand how it creates fear and guilt, and feeling that you are blind, and that you're not smart enough, or because you've had this legs of your journey where you did not know better. It's not your fault. There's things that happen that are beyond your control. But becoming aware of it now and saying, it's okay. I'm not going to allow myself to bottom out. I'm not going to allow myself to criticize self. And I'm going to stop, these intrusive thoughts from taking up the bulk of my energy on the day-to-day basis. You really need to be able to evaluate it. And, these thoughts become automatic and autonomic, like an autopilot. That is auto-suggestion, like Napoleon Hill. So allow that auto-suggestion to be a little bit more positive, especially if it's become so, if you've become so steeped in the negative and you don't like it, then being able to say, I am really steeped in the negative. I don't like this. I don't like the feeling of being held back. I don't like the feeling of fear all the time. Worry. These are states that are indoctrinated and taught, rehearsed, and memorized. So sometimes it's not what you need to learn, it's what you need to unlearn. And then directing where you then want to go, and then what do I want, need, and deserve and believe in next. So then you can clear the past so you can embrace the future and really begin to fall in love with your future. Your future. You know, plausible, real, desirable, and then being able to have reinforcements around you that can keep you on track towards your future, something to look at. You know, are you sitting in the dark? Do you not have any pictures? Do you not have anything that you're looking for? Do you not have an appointment book? Do you not have any recovery dates? Do you not have any recovery gift? You know, are you not making any effort? You know, to what degree can you kind of evaluate yourself and say, to what degree am I not taking an effort? To what degree have I been stalling, procrastinating, not learning my lessons? And then chalk it up to that. But then being able to say, okay, if so, it's because I'm still stuck in that past. There's something that I still have not, worked through, that I have not accepted, that I have not acknowledged, that I can say that this is part of life and this is what I experience, and so it is. And so it is. And just allow it to just let it be and let it to fall into place, and getting that more positive and clear perspective rather than the fear, obligation, and guilt, that fog that can come as a result. Clear the fog. That is basically, it's like walking into a foggy field when you're around those influences. Once you are able to really think through that, work through it, and feel through it, when that fog comes up, when those triggers come up, when when you hear that tone of voice or that manipulator, you're not reactive. You're able to just hold your space in a cool, calm, confident manner and identify it and say, okay, and just allow it to wash by. You will then no longer be a subject or a target to these negative B states that have been indoctrinated or set in motion within you, oftentimes by people who are controlling, manipulative, and are, have, in your case, who knows whether it's, how long it's been, but, with that presence, just understanding that then you have to be able to work through so it no longer becomes an automatic, just sort of triggered state, which is just running itself amok within you. It's important to stop that from occurring so you can clear and hold clear, just be space and breathe through it and not overthink it. It's okay. You can do this. Don't worry about it. It's your buddy, Peace and Harmony, with you here today, and I hope that these videos do help. Please share, please subscribe, and please donate for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support. Peace out. Have a wonderful day.